I have to be uncomfortable. I got to get uncomfortable because if I don't, I'll stagnate and I don't want to be that way.
You're listening to Leading San Diego. I'm Veronica Prandi, Executive Director at Lead San Diego.
And I'm Adrian Quintero from the David's Heart Foundation. Each episode, we sit down with LEAD alumni to explore real stories of community leadership across our region.
And today, we're joined by Jamie Moraga, author and CEO of Franklin Revere and the Amazon best-selling author of REVERED, The Power of Female Leadership. Jamie is also a Lead San Diego Impact grad from class of 2011. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so quick warm-up question. When you introduce yourself, what is the first thing you usually say?
So when I introduce myself, I usually say, hi, my name is Jamie. And that's how I usually will. And then shake someone's hand, or if I know them, I'll give them a hug. And then I say, I don't know, it depends on the situation. If it's business, then I might say, my credentials. Or if I don't, then I just kind of go from there. I don't really start off with anything. It's just, how are you? And nice to meet you, and find something common to talk about from there.
I love asking people, what is it that you do? How would you answer that question?
I wear many hats. So CEO, entrepreneur, mom, wife, and then author. It's really weird because I just published my first book in October. So for me, I've always been a writer in my mind. And so now I can legitimately say author. And that's been a lifelong dream of mine since I was a kid, is to be an author. So it's really fun to say that now.
That's really cool.
So your story really blends that entrepreneurship, the civic leadership, now your book and championing women's leadership. So if we look back on your entire story, like, what is the starting scene? Where does it all begin?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I've always been very forward looking, I don't have a tendency to look back. And so writing my book, because it's got almost a memoir-esque feel to it, because I talk about my journey and it weave in pieces of my life in there. So the book actually forced me to look back and reflect, which was a really good exercise for me. This actually came up in my talk that I had a couple weeks ago when I spoke at a women's leadership conference. Is it really began because my dad was in the Navy. And he was gone for 9 to 12 months out of the year when I was a kid. And I was at home with my mom, and I was the oldest daughter. And I had a younger sister, about 4.5 years younger than I was. So at 5, 6 years old, I had to step up at a very early age and take on more responsibility because my dad was gone for long stretches of time. And I wanted to help out my mom and also help her out with my sister.
So when you think back to like your early leadership influences, you mentioned your dad being in the Navy, your mom like taking care of your family. Who or what really shaped like your early views on leadership?
Definitely my parents, and I talk about that in the book as well. My dad has always been, but both of my parents have always been, yeah, why not you? Why couldn't you do that? There was because back then it wasn't common for young girls to be able to sit there and achieve high level entrepreneurship, business type things. You're talking about, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. There really weren't a lot of examples of that, but I had qualities that I saw that my mom embodied, qualities that my dad reinforced in me, and then also demonstrated in his own business, where he hired women in high leadership positions and was a champion of female leadership when many men back then didn't do that, especially in male-dominated industry in the military.
Exact same thing, exactly.
Yeah, so he was in the Navy, and then when he retired, he started his own business in the military and defense industry as a contractor here in San Diego. And he is also one of the founders of SD Max. So my dad's got this legacy of always supporting women in leadership. And so between my parents, they working together to instill that in me and building my confidence. And then I would just I think it was just me seeing things as I were reading or watching TV. So it was Oprah and Barbara Walters and Meg Whitman and Carly Fiorina and Condoleezza Rice and Sarah Blakely, and seeing all of these people along the way that reinforced to me, hey, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. Yeah.
Yeah. What so was that always from when you were young, or when did you realize that you had those traits as well? Because there's one thing to see it and see what you could be, but then start to actually, as you've grown over the last 2 decades, to be able to, What was the first moment where you saw, I have those traits and I have that, and I actually can really, really do
Yeah.
this?
What's interesting is I call myself an extroverted introvert. I have a
I do as
tendency
well.
to want to be the observer. When I come into a room, I don't come in like gangbusters. I come in, I very subtly kind of assess the room. Where do I want to position myself? Who do I want to talk to? How do I want to, kind of navigate my way into a conversation? So I take it from that perspective versus, walking into the room being like, hi, I'm here. That's not my personality. And so that introverted side. But then I sit there and like, okay, I'm just going to take like a back seat in this, and then I start all of a sudden like the hand goes,
I
and
got
then
Yeah, I
something to
feel,
say.
and
yeah,
I've got something to say, or I think I might be able to do it better, or might have a solution here. And
yeah.
then before they know it, everyone's like, well, Jamie, then you should, why don't you take the lead on this?
Hmm.
And it just became where this my inner self wanted to be more of like the, to supportive role. But then there was the extroverted side of myself that was like, no, I think I just couldn't contain myself. So
Yeah.
it was, yeah. So I would say from an early age all the way to today, it's that same push and pull with
Yeah.
myself.
Mhm.
And then I'll sit there and be like, why did I do that? But then I get a lot of rewards out of my extroverted side
Mhm.
raising their hand, because I wouldn't be an author. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be a CEO. I wouldn't have done all the things, been the second
Yep.
youngest female SDMAC
And
chair,
we'll get to that as
Yeah.
well, because you mentioned that. One thing I want to talk about as we get into your civic leadership and the engagement in the community is you shared that you knew about LEAD in your early 20s,
Yes. Yes.
but you didn't partake in it until about a decade later.
I
So
know.
what about your LEAD experience? I mean, you described it as a major milestone in your career. So
Yes.
was it something you set out to do when you finally joined the Impact class of 2011? Like, what was something during that
Yeah.
experience that really stood out for you?
It's interesting because I went to USD for my undergraduate work. And then I worked in the PR and marketing
Hmm.
industry with an agency in town for a few years before I went back and got my MBA at USD. And I remember at the time being like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, just seeing, I'm dealing at this PR agency, these clients, and they're high profile named
Yep.
Mhm.
people in San Diego, many of whom are still high profile
Hmm.
people here in San
Mhm.
Diego today. And they would talk about, like, I'd look in their bio because I always
Mhm.
like the story behind the
Mhm.
story.
Get to
That's
know the
kind of,
people.
I want
Yep.
to know, like,
Mhm.
how did you get started? How did you get here? So I like to pull that string,
Yep.
just my natural curiosity. So I'd go look, and a common thing I would find was they were LEAD graduates.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, like, but of course I was like junior account executive, I was very
Is
low
this
on
right
the,
for
Yeah.
me yet?
yeah, I was very low on the
Yep.
totem pole. And of course, people getting LEAD opportunities by the agency was like, you need to be higher level.
Yes.
And so I had a very robust bucket list,
Mm.
and it went on my bucket list that I wanted to be
Love
a
that.
LEAD
Yeah.
San Diego graduate, and I wanted to do the program. And it wasn't until I think it was 2010. So I had started my business in 2006. So it was 4 years later.
Hmm.
The application period came out, and I was like, I think I'm legitimate now enough to
Mm.
like put myself forward for this, applied. And literally when I got the acceptance letter, I was like, this is amazing.
It's happening.
It's happening. My bucket list is finally happening. So, my bucket list item. So,
I love that.
yeah, so for me, it was a huge milestone because it was something that I wanted. It was a goal that I had from when I started early in my career. And it came at a really good time for me. I'm glad I didn't do it early in
Yeah.
my career.
Mhm.
I feel like it was
You
meant
came
to
in with
be
experience.
where I was then going to be going next, which was SDMAC after that.
That's amazing. That's like really cool to know that like LEAD. I mean, I like hearing about how people get introduced to
Mhm.
LEAD. So you seeing it as a common theme is like, okay,
Yeah.
kind of early strategizing. Like, okay, well, if
Yeah.
that's something that I might need, I'm gonna put it down.
Those are
That's
people
really,
I want to be with. I want to be part of that.
yeah.
Yes. And I want that on my resume.
Yeah.
I want to be part of that group. I want to be a part of that alumni because I see it as something
Mhm.
that's respected, and that people the who's who of San Diego, they have been through this program. And I wanted to be a part of that too, because that's where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think that's something really impactful that LEAD brings to San Diego. That like it really is a community that you get to know everybody in, and so
It's a master's degree of San Diego.
right
That
there it
it
is.
is. You
That
learn
is,
all about
yep.
San Diego
Yep.
on a different level.
It's an absolutely different level.
So you mentioned like you saw people in lead that you wanted to be a
Mhm.
part of, be at that level. But you also mentioned that lead helped you build lasting relationships that continued to shape your leadership journey for yourself personally, but also professionally.
Yeah.
So can you share a relationship that, or like talk about a relationship from lead that you still carry with you today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still friends with several of the people that were in my class, but I would say more of it as um, I think it gave me the perspective that I
Hmm.
needed to then be when I ended up becoming the chair of STMAC, or the at the time it was the president of STMAC, and they've changed it now, so it's now chair. Um, it gave me that perspective because I was going to be in front of military, business, civic, all kinds of different leaders across the city and the county, and even state and federally. And so I feel like Lead gave me those entrees, those introductions, those
Hmm.
perspectives that helped shape that leadership opportunity for me, where I could feel comfortable being in front of all of those different audiences, especially as a young female in a very male dominated industry. Because I want to say when I did lead and when I did SDMAC chair, I was in my early
Yeah.
30s.
Mhm.
So I'm still, I think I hold the title as
The
the
youngest
youngest female CEO. So our
Ooh.
youngest female
chair you
SDMAC
were.
chair. Yeah.
Mm.
But I would say that there really wasn't one relationship.
Yeah.
I still
Mhm.
carry lots of relationships even to this day from people that I met through the program. But I would say it's more cumulative
Mhm.
versus singular.
Would you say that was a really good age to do it? Like to do
Yeah,
lead?
because I feel like I got some working experience under my belt. I got my MBA under my belt. I started my business and I was able to get a handful of years under my belt. So I felt like I came in with something else
Mhm.
to offer.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to learn from everybody in the room from me, but I
Mhm.
also wanted to contribute
Mhm.
as well from my perspective. So I felt that that was probably a good time for me to come in to do that.
I think that what makes the lead experience so much more beneficial to everyone is individuals are coming from all different backgrounds, all different experiences, and they're not just there to learn themselves. It's you yourself are contributing to that experience. You're bringing in your
Mhm.
experiences that everyone else has the opportunity to learn from.
Yes.
So it's a really great thing to think about.
It really is. So let's fast forward to today, like right now.
Yeah.
How do you describe where you are in your leadership journey today?
That's interesting. I feel like as I've looked back on my journey, and even as I've been reflecting, even the last few months since my book launch, I've seen that I always take the road less traveled. I don't sit there and go, "Oh, that's too hard,"
Mm.
or "Other people haven't done it," or "Can I do it?" It's, "Do I want to do it? Do I feel like I have the
Hmm.
capabilities and the tools to do it? Do I feel like I can make an impact doing it?" And so I push myself. And I mean, the writing of the book was an example of it. And even being a CEO of a woman owned small business in the military defense community here in San Diego, um, high barriers to entry, not easy, uh, would be quite easy to give up and walk away at many points during the journey. But when you get those low lows, you also have those high highs at the same time, and achieving certain things. Like I have a book that I can hold in my hand now that I actually wrote, and I'm proud of.
So
And
let's talk about that because
yeah,
you wrote your book, but you're also at this stage where you're really focused on championing female leadership. So
yep,
you have your book, which is Revered,
yep,
your weekly Substack. You're also doing coaching work that you're building.
yep,
Like, what led you to this chapter in your life? Like, where
yeah.
is this mission that you're coming from that you're so clearly dedicated to lifting up
Yeah,
other
it's
women
passionate
leaders?
for me because it's interesting, and I had been in my business for, gosh, I started in 2006. So it was about
Hmm.
7 years later, and I became a mom.
Hmm.
And actually, I was pregnant with my son when I was SDMAC chair. So I
Oh
did,
wow,
so I hold the title for
as
youngest
yeah,
female and
and pregnant.
pregnant, and
Yeah.
only pregnant chair of SDMAC. And so, what I didn't have at the time was, how in the heck do I do all this being a mom? And at the time, there were the women out there that were working and were moms. They put out the persona that they could do it all, and it was easy. And I sat there and was like, well, I can't do it all. I don't think it's easy. And I felt very isolated and alone in that situation. And I was looking for anything, a lifeline of something, and I could not find it. So for me, I think that's the root of it is we are pulled in so many different directions as a parent and as a leader. And you feel guilty when you're with one and not the other, and vice versa.
Mhm.
And it's that push and pull and that juggle, and not having those examples. And being a woman-owned small business
Mhm.
owner and seeing what it's like to be a female leader in a male-dominated industry, all of those kind of came together.
Mhm.
And for me, it was like, how can I share my experience, share what I've learned, and try to help others? Because I know there's a lot of us just talking to people that are in the same boat, that
Mhm.
feel the same way, or they're like, finally, there's somebody who's actually talking about these things or showcasing these
And it's so
things.
easy to feel isolated, like you're the
Yeah,
only one
yeah,
experiencing that. So a book like you wrote that provides a
yeah,
framework, that provides this example
yeah.
that it is possible.
Yes, exactly. And then I know there's moments where people, and it doesn't matter what kind of leader you are, you've got moments of self doubt, you've got moments of imposter syndrome. And how do you
Absolutely.
move through that? And then how do you grow and evolve in your role? Because when you first start, and then where you evolve to is different. You know, each phase of the
Mhm.
journey requires a different part of yourself, and you need to be able to grow and evolve in
Mhm.
that leadership role. And that's not something that's intuitively taught. And so I've been through that. I've
Mhm.
been through founding a business, growing a business, and then successfully exiting a business
Mhm.
by leading the merger and acquisition. And so, and then what it's like after
Yeah.
that, because believe me, like when you sign away
You've
your
lost
business,
something.
I lost a piece of my
Yeah.
identity, and I didn't even think about that when I was going through the process. So there was a transition period after that. And so I've been through all of that, which I also showcase in the book with
Mhm.
other women who are currently going through it right now. And I wanted people to be like, all right, I can find that person to relate to. I can find
Mhm.
that commonality. I'm not alone. I can believe in myself, and I can relate to this person. And they can pick through, because it's not going to be the same all the time. Like what you connect with right now, in 2 years, you may connect with something else in the book
Mhm.
that's different, or different
Yep,
part of
absolutely.
the different journey of someone else,
Mhm.
because you have grown and evolved in your role too.
Mhm.
You're not the same person. And so for me, that passion is because I felt alone and isolated at many times. I was a young mom trying to be an ambitious leader, and trying to navigate it all. And at times it was okay, and at times it was not.
Mhm.
And I want to be that beacon of hope, and encouraging and
Mhm.
motivating that, hey, I've got some of the tools, I've got some insights, and I'm happy to
And the
share them with
voices that
you.
you were able to connect with
Yeah,
and share within the different chapters of your book, I think not just your own experiences, but
exactly.
their experiences as female
Yep.
CEOs, female founders.
Yep, because not everyone's journey is the
Mhm.
same,
Mhm.
and it is not linear by any stretch of the
At
matter,
all.
and there's nothing wrong with everybody having their own individual journey, but there is
Mhm.
no copy paste that you can do for this role. But you can take pieces
Yeah.
and learn
Mhm.
from, and that's what I tried to do when I couldn't find that book in 2014,
Mhm.
2015, and I sat there and thought 2 years ago, "I'm gonna write the book that I wanted back in 2015 and that I
Mhm.
could not find." And I wanna
Yeah.
be real and authentic and give the behind the scenes, because people need that. They don't wanna see the highlight reels of success. They wanna
Mhm.
they like to see that, but let's be real. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that
Mhm.
gets you to that nice, shiny, successful place.
So, as you grow in your leadership journey continually, what is the one thing in the book that you're still like resonating with today? Or what is one thing that you've kind of grown into that you're like, hey, I wish I could put this back into the book, or, something like
Yeah.
that?
No, I think for me, what really hit me was when I was talking with Star Edwards, and she's the founder and CEO of Bitch and Sauce. And
Love
Oh,
you
that
love Bitch and
sauce.
it's
Sauce is
it's
Yes.
great.
amazing.
She
It
just had a cookbook that came out. And so when she was talking with me, she said, um, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is her superpower.
Wow.
I love that.
And
I've
I
said
had
that for
always,
years.
I love harmony and peace, and I don't like conflict and all
Mhm.
these wonderful things. And so I tried to shy away from certain things. I mean,
Mhm.
I take the road less
Mhm.
traveled, and put myself into uncomfortable situations all the time. And now I recognize I do that. But it's also, uncomfortable is growth.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the way she framed it to me, I was like, Oh my gosh. So I've been sitting there for years, sitting there trying to avoid it or, oh, this is
Mhm.
not feeling, maybe this isn't right for me or what, And then when she said it, ever since then, I mean, even like today,
Mhm.
going through today is, yeah, I'm growing and that's
Mhm.
good. I have to be uncomfortable. I got
Mhm.
to get uncomfortable because if I don't, I'll stagnate and I don't want to be that way.
Mhm.
And so I credit her for presenting that to me in her interview with me that I ended up putting in the book, and that is the chapter, which is, how to get
Yep.
uncomfortable in leadership, and her story behind that, and that it's not a negative thing.
Mhm.
Like it needs to be reframed into a positive thing.
Yeah.
So that's something that I
Mhm.
carried as a lesson for myself. And I learned from I enjoyed the heck out of talking to all these women, that
Mhm.
curiosity that I've
Mhm.
got and the story behind the
Yeah.
story. I want to do more of that. So I'm going
Mhm.
to try to integrate that into my Substack and future things that I do where I continue to tell some stories.
So two other stories I want to highlight in your book. So you frame each chapter as like the importance of this. And so chapter
Mhm.
6 was the importance of authenticity in leadership. And we often think about being authentic as being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then chapter 13 is the importance of confidence
Yeah.
in leadership. And I really like how the two of those tie together because if you're confident in yourself, you
Yep.
can be more authentic, you can
Yes.
be a more
Yeah.
vulnerable leader. So, what are some of the other like features within the book that you really think are important in highlighting as far as a leader's journey that really stuck with you?
Yeah. It's interesting because I see myself as the conductor of the book, the architect of the book, and I see it as a puzzle piece. And so each chapter is a piece of the leadership whole puzzle. And so, and it's each is an element to it. So when you talked about vulnerability, or you talk about confidence, or you talk about getting uncomfortable, or being open, or for me, I think what I've learned most is, and it was a chapter that I actually wrote related to mine, is the reflection because I had always been so forward thinking
It's
Mhm.
easy.
that
Hmm.
you don't look back at what you've done. You don't give yourself credit at the time of
Or
what you've
time
done.
to reflect.
Yes, or give yourself time to reflect. And for me, I'm always like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. I didn't do
Mhm.
this right. Instead of sitting there looking at what did I do right this week?
Mhm.
Like, why are we always frame things negatively? Why can't
Mhm.
it be, okay, what can I learn from this week that I could improve upon?
Mhm.
But how can I do this in a more positive mindset? And so for me, the reflection
Hmm.
part. So I'm trying to be good
Mhm.
about how do I reflect? Like even in my Substacks, I have my leadership where I kind of have a topic each week. And at the end, I'll have a reflection point that somebody can reflect on
Mhm.
after they've read through what I've talked about my topic. So I feel like it's important. And then also trying to encourage people like, hey, take 5 minutes out of your week.
Mhm.
Maybe it's on a Friday at the end of the week, or it's on a Sunday before you start your week, and go back and go, hey, what did I do right? What could I
Mhm.
improve? Okay. And then you can sit there and like give yourself the grace and the credit
Yep.
instead
Mhm.
of me taking 20 years down the line
Mhm.
writing
Do
a
it
book
now.
going,
Yep.
Mhm.
shoot, I've done a lot of cool
Yep.
things.
Do it
And why
Yeah.
now.
didn't I give myself credit at the time? Why was I so
Yeah.
darn hard on myself? And so I feel like we need to give ourselves a break
Mhm.
more and not be that inner critic, not come in there
Mhm.
and criticize ourselves so much, and to reframe things more in a positive way.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel like those are the things from the book.
Yeah.
Those are the elements of leadership I think that it can help improve you and continue to take you to the next level.
Mhm. I heard a framework earlier this week when I was doing a tour, and they said that every semester, cohort or something, they ask from the leadership, they ask the people that are being led, what is something that I can stop doing? Or no, what is something that I can keep doing,
Mhm.
stop doing, and start doing?
Yeah.
So when I was like, oh,
And to think
that's
about that
really
weekly
good.
would be
I
Yeah.
was
very
like, that's
helpful.
good. Yeah, to do that weekly would be really, really cool.
It is.
Yeah.
And it can just take a few minutes,
Yeah.
of time. And then you give yourself that chance to sit there and reflect instead of go, 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 go.
Yeah.
What's next? What's next? What's next? And then 20 years goes by and you're like, oh, I didn't realize all the things that I've done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really it's beautiful to see like how your experience kind of affects your leadership today and
Mhm.
it's ongoing consistently. And so
Yeah.
how did the lead experience shape the way that you show up today?
Yeah, I would say I think it's being open to all the different the topics and the industries and the perspectives. So when you go through and each month you
Mhm.
have focus on a
Mhm.
particular area, group,
Mhm.
person. And you really get that behind the scenes look and you get that full day experience. And for me, that was really helpful just to kind of learn things that I wouldn't have known otherwise because I'm not in that bubble. I'm in my military defense bubble.
Yep.
So I'm
It's
not
easy to be in that
seeing,
silo.
yeah. And just like I remember when it was the military and defense day, I mean, of course I lived that, but there were a lot of people in my class, like probably out of the 50 people that were in the class, like 45 of them or more had no idea.
They
So
drive by, they see
yeah,
the fence, they don't see anything past that.
exactly. So that day was very eye-opening in a positive way. And so I think it's so important for leaders, especially in San Diego and in our community, to do the Lead Impact program or one of your other programs because it gives you that 360 perspective and it gives you that chance to meet and to learn and to share and then from there you grow and you become more educated about your community, about your city, and what all goes on behind the scenes that you may not know about on a daily basis.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to kind of circle back to is you mentioned that you were the first pregnant female chair
Yes.
of the San
Mhm.
Diego military, was it SDMAC?
Yep. So San Diego Military Advisory
Thank you.
Council. Yeah.
And so, when it comes to female leadership, can you talk about, at least in your own experience, the importance of elevating your presence outside of just like the silo that you work in, as far as your organization, and the importance of elevating yourself in a civic leadership role?
Yeah. I think I mean, in the military and defense, like for me, it was just, being out and
Hmm.
about, being involved in the different organizations like SDMAC, NDIA. But then it was also getting involved in LEAD and having people get to know me there. And then I ended up in 2012 becoming a contributor to the Econometer column for the San Diego
Mm.
Union Tribune, which elevated me
Yep.
at another different
Mhm.
level as a thought leader on business and economic issues. And so I just take the opportunity if I can learn and grow. I'm just someone who's naturally curious.
And I think that's such an important quality
Yeah,
as a leader.
yes. And then I want to push myself
Hmm.
because I just want to be that continuous learner because I don't know everything. Everything is changing and evolving
Mhm.
on a daily basis. So what you know today may not know next week. So I am always a learner. I'm a continuous learner. I want to, I just think that getting involved in different organizations and presenting yourself in that way, you continue to learn and grow from those experiences as well.
Yeah. Question. I'll
Hmm.
end it with this. How has your experiences shaped the choices that you've made in civic leadership roles?
Oh, you mean in terms of how I select
Hmm.
where I get
Ye-
Yeah.
involved? Yes.
yes.
Okay. So I look at it as to where can I contribute?
Yeah.
Where am I best? Like, what is my expertise, my experience? And, are they going to get a benefit from me being there as much as I'm going to get a benefit from being there too? So I don't want to put myself into a situation where I can't put 150%. That's just who
Very
I am.
important. Yep.
If I'm going to commit to something, I want to make sure that I put my effort into it because I want to be proud of what I'm doing. I want to feel like I don't want to be flaky. I don't want to be any of those things. So I always try to put in, I try to strategically figure out like, what is my bandwidth? What can I do? How can I add value? And then hopefully uh, I can get that return on investment of time as well with whatever I participate with. So for me, it's just picking different things that fit the schedule that I have, and then also what fits what my background and expertise, and if I can add value.
That's cool. Yeah.
Well, Jamie, I just really want to thank you for sharing your story, your leadership journey with us, and encourage others to pick up your book, Revered, and
Oh, thank
and
you.
to hear not just your experiences, but the experiences of the incredible women that you had the opportunity to interview and to write about. So I just really want to thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
One thing I'm taking away from this conversation is the fact that we are consistently growing, especially in our roles in leadership.
Hmm.
So I'm inspired by like you being a young, kind of just a young person in PR and not knowing all these things, but then to see the growth in where you are today in being able to handle all of the experiences that came your way.
And being comfortable with the uncomfortable, because that's what I'm
Yes.
taking away.
Yep.
So this has been Leading San Diego, produced in partnership with the David's Harp Foundation. Thanks for listening.